For a long time, our planet was far too quiet. Imagine a world where nothing kills anything else, where predators, as a class, simply do not exist. This idyll lasted for millions of years, but one day, nature took its most brutal and, at the same time, ingenious turn. It divided all living things into those who eat and those who are eaten. At that moment, the greatest arms race in Earth's history began. Evolution turned into a war. While some honed the lethality of their fangs, others turned their bodies into impregnable fortresses. Today, we will see how this war began. You're watching the Before Our Era channel. And welcome to the Permian period. To understand why animals became so aggressive, we need to look at the battlefield. 298 million years ago, the world looked very different. All the continents had merged into one giant supercontinent, Pangaea, a massive scar of land in the middle of a boundless ocean. But its size turned out to be a curse. The inland territories turned into scorched deserts that ocean rains could never reach. Life clung to a narrow strip of coastline and rare oases along the rivers. Here, in these cramped corridors of survival, animals came head-to-head. There was nowhere to retreat. But the main enemy wasn't geography. It was the climate. After the warm tropical paradise of the previous period, the Earth cooled down dramatically. Ice caps formed at the poles. The logic was simple. It got cold, food became scarce, and competition intensified. The old masters of the world, the amphibians, couldn't keep up with this race, and new, tougher rulers ascended the vacant throne, the therapsids. But before these giants clash head-on, let's look at where evolution took its most unexpected path. Into the sky. You might wonder, why the sky? After all, only giant insects ruled up there. But the harsh climate changed the forest too. Trees grew massive, and the competition down on the ground became deadly. To survive, some reptiles had to seek refuge up high. That is how the Weigeltosaurids appeared. Nature didn't give them wings like birds. It did something much cleverer. It turned their ribs into a folding glider. Imagine a lizard climbing to the top of a 30-meter tree, spreading the membranes between its elongated ribs and jumping. Gliding for 10 to 15 meters straight into a swarm of dragonflies, a quick snap, landing safely on a neighboring tree. But every flight was a risk. One miscalculation of the angle, and a fall meant broken bones and a slow death on the ground below, where the real predators roamed. The Weigeltosaurids lived on the edge, but that was exactly what gave them their edge. They hunted where land-based killers couldn't reach them. The victims of these attacks, the insects, weren't about to give up without a fight. It was the pressure from these flying reptiles that kick-started their own evolution. For a long time, beetles had been soft and vulnerable, easy prey. But in 2017, scientists discovered a beetle named Panamarenchia in the Permian strata that completely broke the system. This little guy, just 15 centimeters long, had clad itself in hard armor, hard elytra, the perfect defense. This was their countermove. Want to eat us? Try biting through this shell. And this move turned out to be a stroke of genius. The flying reptiles eventually went extinct, but the armored beetles are still around today. Their descendants include scarab beetles, ladybugs, ground beetles, may beetles, and even fireflies. They all wear the very same armor invented 300 million years ago. While life on land and in the air was only just learning how to fight, in the ocean, the art of killing had already been perfected. Here, the war was waged on two levels. The first was a war of strategies. Ammonite mollusks against nautiluses. The ammonites were stronger, but their young lived near the surface of the water. The nautiluses were craftier. Their young hid in the deep ocean. When climate change struck the planet, the surface-dwelling ammonites perished, while the deep-water nautiluses survived and still live in our oceans today. In the waters of the Indo-Pacific region, you can still find several species of these living fossils. The lesson is simple. In the Permian period, it wasn't the strongest that survived, but the most cautious. But there was also a second level of warfare, brute force. While predators on land were only just emerging, the waters were already home to an absolute killer, Helicoprion. It was an 8-meter-long monster with teeth that grew throughout its life and curled into a spiral. Evolution decided that simple teeth weren't enough for a shark, so it gave it a circular saw. The tooth whorl in its lower jaw worked just like a can opener. Helicoprion would swim up to a giant mollusk from below, drive its spiral into the seam between the shells, and start sawing. Crunch, crack. The shell pops open. The soft flesh inside is defenseless. This shows just how far nature can go when it comes down to kill or be killed. But no matter how terrifying the ocean was, the fate of the planet was being decided on land. Here, the evolutionary arms race reached its peak. The cold forced predators to invent ways to keep warm. That is how Dimetrodon's famous sail came to be. It wasn't an ornament, it was a biological battery. In the morning, Dimetrodon would turn its sail toward the sun and heat up in just a couple of hours. While the herbivorous caesias, clunky bull-like reptiles, were still sluggish from the cold and barely crawling in search of plants, Dimetrodon was already primed for the hunt. Here is how it worked. Dawn. A caesia moves slowly among the rocks, sluggish and almost helpless. Dimetrodon is already active. He stalks closer. One precise bite to the neck. The caesia doesn't even have time to turn around. He won, not through brute force, but through thermodynamics. But by the end of the period, even this was no longer enough. The clever ones were replaced by the ferocious Gorgonopsians, the first saber-toothed monsters in history. They no longer needed a sail. They relied on sheer aggression and stealth tactics. They hunted in packs of 4 to 6. Flankers would herd the prey, cutting off all escape routes. The primary killer waited ahead. As the exhausted prey ran toward him, he struck first, going for the throat or the flank. The rest finished the job. They communicated through sounds, growls, howls, and clicks. These were the first animals to turn hunting into a coordinated military operation. And now we come to the finale, to a scene that perfectly describes the entire horror of the Permian period. Imagine a Scutosaurus. It is a living tank. Bony armor, 2.5 meters long and a ton of live weight. Absolute protection. It was built to be invulnerable. But evolution always finds a key to every lock. That key was Inostrancevia, a giant predator with saber fangs designed specifically to pierce thick hide. Their clash is not a quick fight, it is torture. Inostrancevia would land one deep blow and back off. The Scutosaurus couldn't run away. He was simply too heavy. He could only stand there and bleed out. The predator just waited. It was a gruesome, slow death, where victory went not to speed, but to endurance and cruelty. It seemed these therapsids were the ultimate survival machines. Scientists believe that by the end of the period, they had already grown fur and perhaps become warm-blooded. Our ancestors were just one step away from global dominance. But the universe had other plans. The Permian extinction, the worst catastrophe in history, reset the board. The Siberian volcanoes began to erupt, not for a day, not for a year. 1,000,000 years of continuous eruptions. The sky turned into a black shroud. Toxic gases burned their lungs. Acid rain dissolved their skin. Ocean temperatures rose by 10 degrees. Fish suffocated in the oxygen-depleted water. The therapsids, those perfect killers, starved to death on the ash-covered earth. There was no prey, no plants, only darkness, heat, and suffocation. 95% of all life was wiped out. The therapsids lost. Dinosaurs took their place, while our ancestors retreated into the shadows for millions of years. The Permian period taught us a harsh lesson. In the arms race, there are no permanent winners. Want to know who replaced the fallen giants and how the age of dinosaurs began? Then subscribe to the Before Our Era channel. Hit the like button and let us know in the comments what you think of this story. That way, we'll know you're looking forward to the next part. See you soon.